You, step out of the car, now.
Okay, I'm stepping out.
Got a bag on you?
No, sir. I
Don't talk. Give me your pockets.
I'm not resisting. I'm cooperating.
Sounds like resisting to me.
Yeah.
Resisting arrest. Book him.
Sergeant Ronald Watts had no idea what he just did. What came next would become one of the most expensive police mistakes in Chicago's history. 180 people, nearly all of them innocent, spending a combined 200 years locked up in prison. And one person got paid $3.9 million for 10 years they should never have spent behind bars. The recordings caught everything. Body cameras showed the truth. Drugs appeared out of nowhere. Arrest reports said things that never happened. Between 2003 and 2008, Watts and his team made dozens of arrests. Every single one looked the same on video. But Watts had gotten away with it for 5 years. That's when the FBI decided to test him. An undercover agent posed as a drug dealer. Watts did exactly what he always did. He stole the money. He got caught. He was convicted. He went to prison. But here's what I need to ask you before we go further. Have you ever wondered if the system that's supposed to protect us is actually designed to hurt us? Comment below if you think body camera footage should automatically stop bad arrests. Let's get into how this happened. One of these victims had no idea their life was about to change. This person was living a normal life in the Bronzeville neighborhood. They had work, they had family, they had plans for the future. They weren't rich, they weren't connected, they were just someone trying to get by. On the day Watts decided to make his move, this person had done nothing wrong. They were exactly where they had the right to be. They were dressed normally. They weren't breaking any laws. They weren't bothering anyone. They were someone Watts could control, someone from the neighborhood Watts patrolled, someone he had arrested before and gotten away with it. This victim had no idea that a sergeant in the Chicago Police Department was about to change everything. They didn't know that their cooperation would be twisted into a crime. They didn't know that drugs would suddenly appear. They didn't know that a body camera was recording every single moment. They didn't know that 10 years would pass before they saw freedom again. But wait, there's more to this story than just one person. There were 175 others. Sergeant Ronald Watts had a bad reputation in Bronzeville, not the kind of reputation that came from rumors. This was real. Between 2003 and 2008, the Ida B. Wells tactical team made hundreds of arrests. Every single one had the exact same pattern. Drugs magically appeared. Arrest reports didn't match what happened. Victims said the same thing over and over. Residents called them the throwdown team. That meant one specific thing. The cops threw down fake drugs, then they threw you in jail. Watts and his officers weren't stopping crime. They were creating cases. 5 years of arrests, 5 years of convictions, 5 years of people going to prison for things they didn't do. Thing is, Watts wasn't trying to hide what he was doing. He was confident nobody would stop him. His bosses didn't check his work. His cases weren't reviewed until it was too late. The system protected him. His fellow officers protected him. The union protected him. He had gotten away with it for 5 long years. Let me know in the comments if you think police unions should be able to protect officers who plant evidence. Now let's see what happened on the day everything changed. It happened between 2003 and 2008. The exact day doesn't matter. What matters is it happened over and over again. The location was the streets around the Ida B. Wells housing project in Chicago, Bronzeville neighborhood, a place where Watts operated like he owned it. The afternoon started like any other day. People moving, kids playing, families walking, normal neighborhood activity, nothing special, nothing that suggested this day would destroy someone's next 10 years. Watts and his tactical team were on patrol. They saw their target. This person wasn't doing anything illegal, wasn't selling anything, wasn't hurting anyone. Watts approached. He ordered compliance. The victim cooperated. They had nothing to hide because they had done nothing wrong, but that didn't matter to Watts. Watts began searching. Nothing, no drugs, no weapons, nothing illegal, but Watts wasn't done. He reached into his jacket. When his hand came back out, everything changed. Suddenly there were drugs. Suddenly the victim was under arrest. Suddenly a normal day became a nightmare. If stories about police accountability matter to you, hit subscribe right now. Let's see what happened next. Watts approached fast. "Empty your pockets," he said. The victim obeyed. Pockets were empty, nothing there. Watts wasn't satisfied. "You're under arrest," Watts said. "For what?" the victim asked. "I didn't do anything." "You're resisting," Watts replied. The victim wasn't resisting. The victim was confused, standing still, hands visible, not fighting, not running, not even raising their voice. But Watts had already decided what the report would say. Watts signaled his team. They moved in. The victim tried to explain. "That's not mine. I don't know where those came from." It didn't matter. The words fell on deaf ears. Watts and his officers forced the victim to the ground. They handcuffed them. They were rough. This wasn't necessary. This person wasn't dangerous. But Watts didn't care about necessity. He cared about control. The victim was placed in the police car, confused, scared, not understanding what was happening. A normal day turned into terror in minutes. Neighbors watched. Some tried to speak up. Watts's team intimidated them, made them quiet, made them scared to say anything. The victim was taken to the police station, booked for drug possession, booked for resisting arrest. Both charges were completely false, but the system was already moving. The arrest report was being written, and it said things that never happened. Let me know in the comments if you believe this happens more often than we realize, because this wasn't just one arrest. This was Watts's method, over and over again. What Watts didn't know was that a body camera was recording everything. The footage showed the truth. The victim was compliant. The victim's pockets were empty. No drugs appeared until Watts's hand reached into his jacket. Then suddenly drugs existed. The timeline was clear. The evidence was undeniable. The camera caught Watts planting drugs. The victim went to trial anyway. The arrest report said one thing. The body camera showed something completely different. The jury saw the footage. They saw the lies. They convicted the victim anyway. That's how broken the system was. Even with video proof, innocent people went to prison. Years passed. The victim was locked up. 10 years in a cage for a crime they didn't commit. Meanwhile, Watts kept working. He kept making arrests. He kept writing false reports. He kept getting away with it. But other people noticed. Other victims came forward. Same story, same methods, same fake drugs, same false reports. One person, 10 people, 20 people, 50 people. Soon it became clear this wasn't an accident. This was systematic. This was intentional. This was Watts's job. The FBI got involved. They decided to test Watts directly. They set up an undercover operation. An agent posed as a drug dealer. Watts did exactly what he always did. He stole the money. He got caught on camera. He was arrested. He was charged. He was convicted. Then the real investigation started. Prosecutors looked at every single case Watts had touched, every arrest, every report, every conviction. The pattern was horrifying. 180 people, 180 innocent people, all arrested by Watts, all convicted based on his false reports, all locked up for crimes they didn't commit. The video evidence was reviewed, case after case. The footage showed the same thing every time. Watts planting drugs, Watts lying in reports, Watts destroying lives. The system that should have stopped him after the first case let him continue for 5 years. The FBI brought charges. The U.S. Department of Justice opened a full investigation. Federal prosecutors knew what they had: clear evidence, multiple witnesses, video proof. Watts was convicted in 2013 of stealing from the undercover agent. He was sentenced to 22 months in prison. That was the federal case, but there was something much bigger happening. The Chicago Police Department faced a crisis. One of their sergeants had planted evidence on 180 people. The body camera footage proved it. The arrest reports contradicted the footage. Prosecutors couldn't ignore what they saw. They had to act. One by one, cases were reviewed. Victims who were imprisoned got exoneration certificates. That's a legal document that says you were wrongly convicted. The court believes you're innocent. Your conviction is erased. But being exonerated doesn't give you back the years. It doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't fix what was broken. The city of Chicago understood the problem. They understood the liability. They understood that 180 innocent people had been destroyed by their police department. The lawsuit started immediately. Victims sued the city. Victims sued the police. Victims sued the state. The cases kept coming. The city's lawyers knew they couldn't win. The evidence was too clear. The body camera footage was too damning. The pattern was too obvious. Denying would only cost more money in legal fees. Admitting meant paying massive settlements. Either way, Chicago taxpayers were going to pay for what Watts did. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe because we're just getting to the financial part of this case. Let's talk about the cost. The city of Chicago approved a $90 million settlement. That's $90 million from taxpayers for one corrupt sergeant for 180 innocent people. The settlements were divided among the victims. Some got more money than others. The person who spent the most time in prison got $3.9 million. When Watts was convicted in 2013, local news covered it. When the first exonerations happened, people started paying attention. When the scope became clear, the story exploded. 180 innocent people, 10 years on average behind bars, body cameras that caught everything. The Chicago Tribune ran the story. Other newspapers picked it up. National news outlets started covering it. Legal organizations called it one of the worst police misconduct cases in modern history. This wasn't a local story anymore. This was a national scandal. Social media amplified it. The comments flooded in. People were angry. People were outraged. People shared the story. They tagged friends. They asked how this could happen in a major American city. The body camera footage went viral. Millions of people watched it. Millions of people saw Watts planting drugs. Civil rights organizations got involved. Wrongful conviction nonprofits publicized the case. Defense attorneys used it to train other lawyers. Police reform advocates pointed to it as proof the system was broken. The story spread everywhere. The Chicago Police Department had to respond. The mayor's office had to respond. They apologized. They announced new policies. They said it would never happen again, but words are easy. Actions are harder. By 2023, 10 years later, the settlement was finally approved, but the story kept spreading. People wanted to know how this happened. People wanted to know why it took so long. People wanted accountability. Type justice in the comments if you think body camera footage should automatically stop prosecutions. The legal process was complex, but the result was simple. Victims filed wrongful conviction claims. Victims filed civil rights lawsuits against the city and the police department. The discovery process was brutal for Chicago. Thousands of pages of evidence. Body camera footage from case after case. Arrest reports that didn't match reality. Text messages between officers. The pattern was undeniable. The settlement negotiation didn't take long. The city's lawyers knew they had no defense. The amount they paid was $90 million total. That breaks down to an average of about $511,000 per victim, but it wasn't divided equally. Victims who spent more time in prison got more money. One victim spent nearly 10 years locked up. They received $3.9 million. Other victims got less. Some got several $100,000. Some got less than that. But here's the thing about money. No amount of dollars brings back lost years. No payment can undo the trauma of prison. No settlement repairs relationships that were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Jobs were lost. Education was disrupted. Children grew up with parents in prison. No amount of money fixes that. The city also implemented new policies. Body camera footage now has to be reviewed before arrest reports are filed. Arrest reports now have to match what the footage shows. Officers face consequences if they lie in reports. It's not a perfect system, but it's better than what existed before. Watts served his 22 months. He was released. He faced additional civil lawsuits from victims. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed, but Watts only spent 22 months in prison. The victims he wrongly convicted spent 10 years, 12 years, 8 years, longer than his federal sentence. That's the injustice. Here's what I want you to understand about this case. One of the exonerated victims spoke to the media. This is what they said. I was just a regular person in my neighborhood. I had every right to expect that the police would do their job honestly. I cooperated. I followed orders. I trusted the system, and the system destroyed me. I spent 10 years in prison for something I didn't do. 10 years. I missed my family. I missed my children growing up. I missed birthdays and holidays. I missed normal life. And when I got out, I had to rebuild everything from nothing. The money doesn't bring back those years. Nothing brings back those years, but it's acknowledgement. It's the city saying we know we were wrong. We know we hurt you. We know the system failed you. That matters. That means something. What I want people to understand is how many Ronald Watts are still working as police officers right now, how many other innocent people are in prison because of corrupt officers, how many other body cameras are recording the truth but nobody's watching. We need accountability. We need real consequences. We need the system to work for everyone, not just people with power. I'm grateful to the attorneys who believed me. I am grateful to the people who fought for my exoneration. But I'm angry that it took 10 years. I'm angry that I had to go through that. I'm angry that so many other people are still waiting for their turn. Here's what this case reveals about America. Since 1989, over 375 people have been wrongly convicted due to police misconduct just in Illinois. 375. Body camera footage now helps overturn about 40% of wrongful convictions. Chicago alone has paid over $600 million in police misconduct settlements since 2000. That's money from taxpayers, money that could go to schools, money that could fix roads. Money wasted on corrupt officers. 70% of wrongfully convicted people say police fabrication was the main cause, not mistaken identity, not bad evidence, police planting evidence. So let me ask you, how many Ronald Watts are still wearing badges right now? How many innocent people are sitting in cells for crimes they didn't commit? How many body cameras are recording the truth, but nobody's watching the footage? Because if we don't demand that body camera footage is reviewed before arrests are filed, if we don't change the system so corrupt officers face real punishment, if we don't hold police departments accountable, then we're just waiting for the next Watts, the next victim, the next $90 million bill that taxpayers have to pay. Comment below if you believe police misconduct has destroyed public trust in the system. If you think stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these stories. We're going to keep demanding accountability. We're going to keep fighting for victims who deserve justice. This isn't just about one sergeant or one victim. It's about all of us and the system we're willing to accept. See you in the next one.